Claire, do you want to start us off with our introduction?
Yes. Hello. Welcome. We are the Yab. I mean, we're some of the Yab. We're not the entire Yab.
There's like at least a dozen of us.
Yeah.
Probably.
We've never counted, but there's like
14?
14. There's 14. They're all amazing.
3 people.
Yeah,
in case
so
you
we're
couldn't tell.
3/14ths, but I don't want to do math because it's Saturday.
It is a Saturday.
We are the Yab. We are a group of teens from Los Angeles and Ventura County. Our mission is to destigmatize teen mental health, encourage people to seek help. Do you want to
provide resources and kind of change the conversation around teen mental health and encourage help-seeking behaviors? I don't know if you said that one. So this is basically what the YAB does is we're creating a for teens by teens mental health initiative, and that is what Mind Your Mind is. Just quick plug, you should check out and follow our Instagram, mindyourmind_Cal.
Not CA, that's Canada.
Yeah, we did find out that there was another Mind Your Mind, and it's also a youth mental health initiative, and they're in Canada. But we're not going to talk about that. Okay, today's podcast topic is suicidal ideation and self-harm. So we're going to try and provide some information and some resources, and then we're going to talk about some of our experiences and maybe provide some advice. The goal is to help people feel like you're not alone going through this. So we can start off by defining these things. That could be a thing we do. Oh, we should introduce ourselves. Hi, I'm Sabrina.
I'm Clara.
I'm Shade.
So suicidal ideation is having thoughts of suicide. They can be inactive, so like sort of passive, general ideas of killing oneself.
Or they not wanting to be there anymore.
Yeah. Or they could be a specific plan. Those are both valid examples of suicidal ideation. Some things that you should look out for. Shade, do you want to?
Sadness with or without crying, anxiety, lack of energy and or motivation, temper outbursts and or violent episodes.
So like if somebody is really easily irritated or they're sleeping too little or too much.
We're trying to provide some stuff to help you identify some signs in yourself or in your peers, because a lot of people don't know. And right now, and this is something we're going to talk about, there's a lot of stigma around this stuff. A lot of people make jokes, I can attest to this in my own life, of, oh my God, I'm going to kill myself. I got like a 60, I got a C on that test. And that makes it hard for people who are actually going through this stuff to be vulnerable about their experiences or open up to their friends. So we're trying to provide these signs so you can try and be aware of friends who might be going through this.
What should I look for in my friends and in my peers for suicide ideation?
I would say from like a personal type level, like I want to say like a lack of energy, but also whenever I feel like I was going through a lot of stuff, it was like my energy was still somewhat there. So I feel like there are things you can like really detect.
An important thing to remember is that this is a very individual experience. People are going to act in different ways when they're feeling this way. It's not a universal thing where like, I'm doing this so you know that I'm struggling with suicidal ideation. Just keep an eye out on your friends' well-being is important, and your own well-being. It's important to do times of self-reflection and kind of check in with yourself about how you're feeling. Clara, do you have any ways that you like to check in with yourself?
Yeah, I have. So, I'm a teenager. The world is crazy right now. So I've definitely, so I've definitely had like split-second moments in the past year or so where I was like, man, I really wish I weren't here, just like in a general space. And the thing is, like, just casually thinking like once for like a split second that like you wish you weren't here isn't really suicidal ideation. So what I like to do is I like to like sort of regroup like 5 minutes later and be like, do I still feel like that? Like what's what's going on? Is there something like directly external in my life that's like affecting me? Like, am I feeling this way because I have finals week and that's making me feel, weird and gross, and maybe I just don't want to be at school.
Gross.
That is true. And yeah, so like I know that some of you have personal experiences with suicidal ideation. Shade, do you want to share your experience?
So I had this friend in high school, and we were somewhat close. We weren't like completely like 100%. It was like a good 50. And
like on the friendship meter.
Yeah, like it was there. It wasn't there, but it was there.
I should keep one of those.
And he just like for a quick second like kind of stopped coming to school. So then every now and again I'd kind of like go and I'd check up on him, and then I'd like head over to his house just to be like, hey, like, are you okay? Like, you want to hang out for a quick second? And like somewhat like I can't put a specific date on it, but for a hot minute he was like, I guess, brighter, to say the least. He was more out there, and he started coming to school again. And then a week later, after I thought he was feeling better and doing better, he OD'd. And then I don't know, I feel like that was a lot on kind of everybody
Yeah,
involved.
It's certainly a very intense experience.
And then turns out his parents and him just wasn't like getting along, and he just kind of like refused to go to anybody to talk about it, especially his parents, because it was like he wasn't getting along with his parents.
So what I'm hearing is something that we do hear a lot, is that before things get worse, before they make an attempt on their life, people will frequently seem to be getting better. Do either of you know the reason for that?
Not really.
Maybe it's possibly because they don't want anybody to think like it's coming. Like, they don't want to be like predictable type.
Yeah, that could definitely be an aspect of it. From what I've heard in mental health training, another part of it is that they feel they've made a plan, they've set a date, things are finally going to be over. So that can also contribute to different behavior in the days or weeks leading up to an attempt. Do you want to share some personal experiences?
Yeah, I do. I've pretty much struggled with depression pretty much my entire life. But it really sort of came to a head when I was 8 years old, which I know is really young for a lot of people. But it's my experience. Basically, I had a dance studio that wasn't very supportive, basically. They kind of pushed me to be everything, and they kind of like visibly favored some of my friends over me. And they actually kind of pitted my best friend and I against each other. And this was also coupled with the fact that, so I am autistic, and one of my ways of stimming or dealing with the world is, at least when I was younger, was that I would play with my belly button. And this was a thing that a lot of my teachers did not like at all. And so they would like basically grill me on why I was doing this. I got sent to the principal's office. They would really just like focus on the fact that it was technically a dress code violation rather than the underlying reason for it. And
that's weird.
Yeah.
Dress codes are weird, guys.
I was also like, if you can spend an hour every week with somebody over a dress code violation, maybe you can spend an hour with that same person every week talking about why they're doing this and what you can do to support them.
That sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah. And also, like, I knew that I had depression. You know, my dad had mild depression, so I've kind of known about it all my life, which I'm really grateful that it's a thing that I've sort of grown up seeing as a thing that is not to be ostracized for. But I would like seek help, you know, like, cause like I legitimately wanted to kill myself at 8 years old, and I would seek help, but nobody recognized me, nobody saw me, they would just be like, oh, maybe you should try some breathing exercises. And I'm like, breathing exercises, they can be great for anxiety. I'm not dunking on breathing exercises, but
We support breathing exercises.
yeah, they
in
do
this
not
space.
help suicidal ideation, or at least they didn't in my case. And it really meant a lot that nobody recognized that I was going through something.
I'm so sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but something I want to point out is breathing exercises is one of those short-term coping skills, like if you're in the middle of an episode of something really severe. But from what Clara is saying, it sounds like she was dealing with an extended period of feeling this way. It wasn't like a singular incident, and that is not something that is going to go away with short-term coping skills.
And so when I was 9, I tried to kill myself. I remember it. I'm not going to get into the details because, frankly, I don't want to. But I did attempt suicide. And I think what brought me back from the edge was realizing that I had a lot to prove to myself. Like, I really wanted to be a lawyer, I think, at that time. So I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer and I can't do that if I die. And so I didn't. And eventually I found a good therapist that saw me and
Therapist.
I was, yes, therapy. And
we like therapists in this.
I was put on medication that helps me. And
in appropriate situations, I'm not just saying do drugs. I'm saying if you're able to see a psychiatrist and get medication for what you're dealing with, it can be very helpful. Yay, medication is probably, don't take that as a blanket statement.
And so for the past 3 years of my life, I have not cut myself, self-harmed, thought about suicide at all. And I'm really, really proud of that.
We're proud of you too. That's really awesome. I think that makes actually a really good transition into discussions of self-harm, which I haven't personally experienced this, but I've been through it with a lot of friends who have been dealing with this. And I have to say, something important to keep in mind is sometimes it can be linked with suicidal ideation, sometimes it isn't. And also, a lot of people have this conception that self-harm looks in a very specific way. It looks like cutting scars on one's arms or legs, but there's a lot of different types of self-harm. Yeah. We had a couple coping strategies written down for alternative coping skills. Would one of you like to talk about that?
Yeah, so I have, as I mentioned before, I have done self-harm. And the thing, so one of the greatest and most prevalent misconceptions about depression is that it's an intense sadness. And like, that can be true for some people, but for most people it is, or at least for me, it was being completely void of emotion. And so some people self-harm as a way to feel something, but as Sabrina mentioned, that's not a good way to feel something. So a coping strategy that I've come across that I like to use is, instead of cutting or burning, or take like a handful of ice and squeeze it, because it will give you a reaction that is similar to pain, but it doesn't leave scars. It won't hurt you. The worst that you're gonna feel from squeezing ice is your hands will be cold, because it's ice.
Do you want to speak on some ways to feel things when you're feeling down?
Me personally, it's like anytime I feel like I'm getting to the point where I might start cutting again, it's like I take that as like my sign to just like go outside, run, just like vibe on my own and listening to some music. I love music. And just listen to music and just take that time out for myself. And then like whenever I feel like, okay, I'm good, and like I know why I feel, how I feel, and who made me feel that way, kind of, then I go talk to that person. And it's like I try and have that discussion about them with them, and then I feel like I'm really good after that. But if it gets down to the point where it's like they don't want to talk about it or they don't want to acknowledge it, then it's kind of like I take that time and I kind of draw, or I go out on a run again.
So would you say that that's like an opportunity for you to like regroup and like evaluate your emotions, or like
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
what I'm hearing is that's like a period of self-reflection, which is something super healthy, is to really try and understand how you're feeling, and then you can analyze the best action to take, because when you're in that heated emotion, it's really hard to think clearly, and that's an often cause of self-harm. Some other things, for me, this is a little cheesy, I get very emotional with poetry, so if I'm feeling numb, I might read some really intense poetry. That once again, these things don't work for everybody. You have to kind of experiment and figure out what works for you. But the important thing is to stick with it, because in the long run, it's so much better for you and your mind and your body than hurting yourself. Another sensory seeking thing you can be doing is obviously binge eating disorders are a different thing, but like sour candy is really good, because like intense sour candy, that can be a really good way of experiencing intense sensory things without hurting yourself.
if you are a person who enjoys or can handle spicy food, then spicy food is a good way to reset your nervous system. Those are also good things to do when you're having an anxiety attack, is sour, spicy food. Sabrina, you said that you work with Teen Talk, which I might add is an amazing organization.
Yeah, I'm going to do a quick plug here. You should, everybody, even if you're not currently struggling with mental health stuff, go download the Teen Talk app, because if you're ever lonely, we don't just take crisis situations. We're there to talk whenever, and we have trained peer advisors, and it's just a really great resource. If you ever feel like you want to talk to a fellow teen, just hop on the app, or if you're dealing with something hard and you just need someone to talk to that you feel like will have mental health training, it's also completely anonymous and it's all over text. So if you don't feel like you can call someone, then just check it out. Teen Talk app on the App Store. Check it out. Sorry. Quick plug over. What was your question?
Have you ever received text messages from people that are like, well, I feel a certain way, but I don't know if I count as like a suicide risk, or I don't know if what I'm feeling is suicide, ideation? Like, what do you say to them?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something we see. Something just right off the bat, all of these experiences are valid. Just because someone is like only feeling suicidal sometimes, that doesn't mean that they're not dealing with problems. It's not an all or nothing situation.
And just because you're technically not a suicide risk doesn't mean that you're not going through something.
So I want to, again, validate that any degree of these feelings are a valid struggle. But something that we like to start off with on the app and that I use in my personal life is, once again, today talked about like some common signs. If you start seeing those, or on the app if someone comes, hey, I want to kill myself, or any of that language, I don't want to be here anymore, something we can do is, okay, do you have a plan? I'm going to talk about a strategy called QPR. The first step is question, which is basically asking, hey, are you feeling this way? And I want to ask both of you, because I think you guys have had more experience with these feelings than I have. Is someone asking you if you're feeling suicidal, is that ever going to make things worse? Is that ever going to push you closer to suicide?
When I was going through suicide ideation, if somebody asked me if I was feeling suicidal, I would have hugged them. That is possibly the greatest thing that you could have done for me.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's not going to hurt your friendship if you see some of these signs in your friends and you ask them. It's only going to, if they're not, they're just going to say no. And if they are, then you're doing them a favor. The second step is persuade, which is either if they're texting you late at night, they're like, hey, I'm about to do this. You try and connect with them. You say, please, can you call me? You convince them to get to the next day when you can see them and get to step 3. Or if it's like someone talking to you, you say, hey, can you come with me to go talk to the school counselor? Because we're teens. We should not have another person's entire mental health on our shoulders. But the best thing we can do to help a friend is by connecting them to resources that are designed for that. So persuade is persuading someone to get to step 3, which is our resources, taking them to a school counselor, having them call the suicide hotline if they are in a crisis, all of those kinds of things. So QPR is a really great strategy if you're starting to see those signs, because it's just helps people. Everyone should know QPR. Keep that in mind.
Super random and kind of has like nothing to do with this, but
Totally
there was like
fine.
this one time my friend, she was like super close, like she was on the edge, right?
Yeah.
And then I was there with her, and then she was like, she wanted to call suicide hotline, right? So then I was there, I was just like, you know what I'm saying, like I was rubbing her back and like, you know, I was talking to her. Tell me why she called and they put her on hold. I was speechless.
I don't know. It's okay to admit when you don't know things. I've been lucky enough to not have to contact suicide hotline for myself or for a friend. I didn't know that they put people on hold. That sucks. That's not good.
But then she was like, I don't know, I guess she kind of has that like sense of humor, so then
Yeah.
she kind of just laughed about it after and we were good.
Yeah, I didn't know that they do that.
I didn't know either. I low-key really thought like they was gonna talk her out of it and everything. Like they was like, okay, just give me a second, and then it was just on hold.
I understand that they're probably overstaffed and know, like,
Understaffed.
sorry. I understand that they're probably understaffed and whatnot, but that just seems wrong. Although Teen Talk, being a text message service, does not put you on hold, right?
We do not put you on hold, but we do have advisors on the app from, I think we're starting 3 o'clock shifts, but I'm not sure if that's every day. But every single day from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. we have advisors on. And we're always happy for new users. So, again, shouting out the other resource.
Not happy that people are.
No, we are not happy. To be clear, the issue is not, some people have said, isn't it a good thing that you don't have a lot of people on the app? And the answer is no, because we know the teen mental health crisis is still happening. It just means that not a lot of people know about Teen Talk as a resource or are utilizing it. So no, it's not a good thing that less people are using the Teen Talk app. That's something that people have posed to me before. Isn't it good? No, because it doesn't mean that mental health has been solved. That's another thing that we can talk about. Does this stuff just go away?
My experience with my depression, because it's also like, I don't want to say that I'm not depressed now. Like I am still on medication. I still am someone with depression, but I'm not somebody who is in danger of killing themselves. My depression is just sort of a background deal that sometimes happens. But I think, you know, like I've heard a lot of people talk about depression, and one thing that I've kind of never heard people talk about is that it's a battle. Like you're kind of constantly fighting it. And like if you get to a point where you're not anymore, that's amazing. That good for you. But a lot of people are, you know, it's a chronic illness. A lot of people for a large part of their lives, you know, like I've accepted the fact that I will spend a large amount of my life just trying to keep my depression at bay. So like it won't go away, but it can become, or it probably won't go away, but it can become less severe. It can become less of an issue, you know. And like that's enough. That's good.
So I feel like genuinely like it doesn't go away, especially if you're constantly around the type of people where it's like you talk to them because you don't have nobody else to talk to, and it's constantly like, oh, it's not valid, or oh, you're overreacting and you're doing too much. Whenever you do get the help that you need, even at that, it doesn't go away, but I feel like it does definitely like lessens it, where it's like you might still feel it from time to time, but it's not going to be like a 24/7 thing all day.
The clinical term for that is partial remission, right? I've been referred to as I got it right. It's because I read my therapy files and they were like depression status, and my therapist wrote partial remission, and I was like, yeah, partial.
Okay, so like I said, I don't have clinical depression, but something that I think the story I'm about to tell conveys is that there is no reason that is silly for feeling suicidal, or your reasons do not make it less valid. Because the first time I felt like I didn't want to be here anymore was because of a mathletes tryout.
Valid.
I mean, that can tear you. Losing an audition or a tryout can be tough.
Yeah, so I was on mathletes all freshman year and first semester sophomore year. And then second semester sophomore year, the tryout came around and I was not in a great place. My parents and sister had been kind of yelling and just like it wasn't a very, and there was a lot going on with school. I was studying for another math test. I was just not in a good headspace, and I didn't do well on the tryout. Also, there was an issue with the tryout. This guy, I'm not going to name names, one of the mathletes captains, I did a retryout, and he did not write questions very well. He gave me a question, and I couldn't read his handwriting, so I thought a plus was a minus. And that was supposed to be the retryout because there was an issue with my ADHD, and they realized there was a problem on the test because I pointed it out, and then they started talking by my desk while I was trying to take it, and I couldn't focus because I have ADHD. So then this other one was in a small room with this guy, and he had just scribbled it onto paper. He didn't have the timer they were supposed to do. It was just not a good situation, and I didn't get in. And I struggle, like a lot of people, with putting too much of my self-worth into academics. And I was heartbroken. I was crushed. I felt like I was looking at all of the people who I knew that did get on and thinking, oh my God, they're better than me. I suck. I'm worthless. And that was my first experience genuinely feeling like, oh my God, is this what feeling suicidal is like? I don't want to be here. I feel like I'm worthless. So your reasons aren't silly or stupid. There's plenty of different reasons. Different people have different responses to different things. And you can take something really hard and feel suicidal because of it. And that is not any less valid than someone who's dealing with something more typical, I want to say, like a more common cause. Not that any cause is like a blanket statement, but they're all, what matters is the effect, not, I mean, the cause does matter, but if you're feeling this way, then it doesn't matter what caused it because you're feeling this way. What matters is looking for help and not looking for, oh, do I not count because it's a silly reason to feel suicidal? There's not a silly reason to feel suicidal. Suicidality is a serious issue no matter what the cause.
When questioning whether you should seek help or not, just seek help. Yeah. Anyway, worst thing that's going to happen is somebody says, maybe you should go somewhere else a little bit. Like, just seek help. Do it. Put yourself out there.
Also, I feel like sometimes, like, whenever people ask for help, they feel like it makes them look, like, weak or anything like that. And I just want to put it out there, like, asking for help. I feel like, from a personal level, I feel like it's one of the strongest things you could ever do, because it's, like, you know that you should get the help that you need. So I feel like that's definitely something you shouldn't shy away from. Like, if you know that you need the help, or even if you have to consider it, I feel like you should take it. Even if there's, like, nothing going wrong, it's, like, still just nice to have somebody listen and be able to talk to.
You are not a burden for asking for help. You're just being human, and when you're in a hard place, humans are communal animals. When we're struggling, we reach out for support. And if you're trying to think, no, I have to be alone because what I'm going through is just like no one else wants to deal with this. Everyone's dealing with stuff. No one's going to look at you and go, your stuff is too big. You're dealing with too much shit. I don't want to be around you. No, you're reaching out to help because you're struggling and you want to do better. That's a good thing, objectively.
If you know somebody who is going through suicidal ideation, do the QPR thing. Try to get them some help. If you think you might be going through suicidal ideation, get some help. Thank you.
Talk to a friend. Talk to a trusted adult. If you don't, unfortunately, have any of those resources, look Teen Talk app, Suicide Hotline, any of that stuff.
I think there's county-specific hotlines.
Hotlines, yeah. I've been Sabrina.
Shade.
Clara.
And we're no longer those people.
Live, laugh, love.
Bye. Check out
our
Instagram.
Follow us.
MindYourMind_cow.
Not
CA. That's Canada.